It's been bloody ages, hasn't it? As which is probably a great thing if you're bored of all that tedium here. So we are back with a Madaxman podcast and a full set of people in audio and possibly video if you're watching this on YouTube, which is probably the better place to do it because we are talking about army lists and it may make more sense if you can actually see them. But we'll talk around it. And we've even got somewhere that we're going to try and shoehorn in a bit of an Andy's quiz just to try and get us back into the old pattern. But I'm here with Dave, with Andy, who is just a number really, 726502, Gordon and Richard Case. And here, just to give us some sort of context so we don't have to make all this stuff up, we're just going to talk about the army list that we took to the one-day ADLG competition in Oxford or near Oxford, which was this past weekend, which was basically themed for, I think it's fair to say, themed for stuff that Jesse likes.
Yes,
most,
definitely.
yeah, which is really it. So I think that was the challenge. So as you can see, these are Sassanids, Arab Conquest, Umayyad Arab, Abbasid Arab, Arab Indian, standing out because it's got an elephant in it. Hindu Indian standing out because it can have more elephants in it, and then a load of cavalry armies, and then Tang standing out because it's got loads of toys. Is that a fair summary?
Wasn't it
Anybody?
supposed to be Arabs going east from after the conquest sort of thing?
Yeah,
To
the
China.
Conquest and immediately afterwards out to China or something like that. Was did anybody? Yeah, well, obviously you did pick your own list, which we'll go into looking at in a minute. Were there? Was it difficult for any of you to actually pick out the one you wanted to pick here? Was there debate or was there a standout for everybody? Um, Dave, let's just go down the pile. Mr. Allen, was it a standout for you or did you dither?
It was a kind of short notice thing. I did want to do a Hindu Indian with Rajput
Oh,
because I've got some very pretty Rajput cavalry, but
Right.
in the end, it was just going to be too fiddly. So I went with something I've used before, which is Arab Conquest.
Okay. Saunders, what about you? Was it a no-brainer?
well, since I was properly prepared, I took the Hindu Indian with the Rajputs.
Right. But did
It's
you
more
ever consider any
balanced
of the other
than
ones, or
experience.
was that a no-brainer for you?
It's an army I've used before,
Okay.
so and I thought I haven't used elephants. I've got this silly elephants general.
True.
Oh
True. I
no,
remember that
camp,
one.
elephant camp, which
Okay.
I decided I wanted to use. That was the thing which swung it. Basically, was my stupid camp.
Okay. And which way did you swing on this one then? What was your choice driven by?
Me,
Andy? No,
uh,
Andy.
Oh, me. It would either have been Hindu Indian because I had an Indian army, or basically because I'd recently painted up a Tang army, so I thought, right, let's use that.
That's a winner. Gordon, you've got a million armies and they're all lovingly painted. Which one did you jump out of you from
I
this
was
list?
guided by the experience of a similar kind of theme, but narrower at campaign. I think it was last year. And I took a purely kind of step army, small, very elite, and all the rest of it. And it ran into lots of trouble against armies that had combined foot and cavalry arms to them.
Okay.
So I then looked at this wider list and thought, well, I could face massed elephants. I could face massed cavalry, which would be either impact or impetuous, or as a subset, that would be the Tibetans with massed cataphracts, or even massed infantry with bows for the sort of the various Arab armies and the Tang. So I also went for a combined arms army as well. And the one that I thought was cheapest and got me up to 23 units was one that had cheap but good impetuous cavalry to provide the nasty pointy bit.
So actually, you're saying you thought about this quite carefully, whereas everybody else has just gone for sort of, oh, I had this thing and it was new.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I came to a conclusion pretty quickly.
Okay, all right. And Richard, what about you?
Yeah, I thought about it as usual quite a bit.
Yeah, there's some analysis going on.
I did lists for about 6 of them, but in the end, despite being very tempted by all the Tibetan cataphracts, I said, look, these armies are dominated by cavalry and spearmen, and there is a choice to have impetuous medium swordsmen and elephants backed up by bows, which seems to be a rock to all of those scissors. So why don't I just go with the Hindu-Indian?
Yeah, that's clever. That does make a lot of sense. And then sort of finally for me, I kind of looked down the list and thought, well, I've used sort of Abbasids and I've tried using Tibetans and it didn't work, and I haven't really got enough stuff for the Hindus. Chinese don't really fancy them. And then I actually realized that Central Asian Turkish has only been taken once before anywhere in the world by anyone on the ADLG database. So I thought there's a great opportunity to take an army which appears in, I think it's like sort of the 6 or 7 least popular armies in terms of being fielded, and see if it's any good. And then, unfortunately, I realised that it had been taken by Ethan over in the States to a competition. So, despite the fact it's only been used once, it's got an 80% win rate, winning 4 out of 5 of the games it's ever played. So the pressure was on to try and keep up with that sort of ratio, which I was hoping it would be a bit more useless, but then it was done. So that's where we're at. But let's have a look at some of these lists in detail then. So this one, Mr. Saunders, this is your Rajput Kingdoms, the one you already had, I guess. So talk us through how, why, what, how it all sort of works, and what were the choices that you made in it?
Okay, so it's kind of similar to one I used to use in version 3, which was much more fun because, anyway, that's a different matter, because they changed the rules to stop that army being so good. But because you used to be able to dismount the Rajput's cavalry as impetuous foot if you faced elephants, but you're not allowed to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
the general idea was to have the two elephant commands. So it's a Hindu army with a Hindu internal ally, which is, in theory, gives you more elephants. So you could go with a very, very strong elephant army, but I thought, because there's going to be a lot of cavalry, I'll take 1 command of heavy cavalry impetuous elite. And I also fancied using the 2 camel impact in that command, because the theory is when you go in and hit enemy cavalry, your 2 camels go around the other side and don't touch your camel, but touch the enemy's camel, and thus give you an extra drop in the combat when you get there. Plus, the camel impacts can charge in on their own, and possibly, even though they're like they're like camels, they can win because they get that minus and they have the impact.
So you were saying you built this whole list around 2 light camel impact with an impetuous heavy cavalry command.
Well, I've got the 2 camels, so I wanted to use them, and I have used them before. They're kind of fun, until you end up touching them and having to try and go through them because you can't interpenetrate and things like that.
Okay.
So the theory is you drive off enemy cavalry, and then I experimented. There's the first command has got 3 elephants.
That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
I wanted to see if 3 elephants together would have a bigger oomph and go through something, and that was a failure.
And are they just sort of vanilla medium swordsmen in this list? Is there no option? Because that's pretty bland, isn't it?
Your Rajput, you have to take swordsman.
Okay.
It's obviously come down powering from the previous versions.
Yeah, because looking, you've got, it looks to me, I don't know if anybody else has got thoughts, you've got these Indian type commands which sit and shoot, and the elephants make them cavalry proof and they chug forward. And then you've got this impetuous heavy cavalry thing, which I think is quite cool, but seems to do something completely different and very difficult to coordinate with the rest of the army. And you've already given it an ordinary general, whereas I'd almost be tempted to put 3 competents into this list.
You can do that, but it thins the army down from 24 down probably to 23.
I suppose you can include the competent with the Indians, with the elephants maybe. Well, but they're elite elephants.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd put a brilliant general with the 3 elephants to split. So the idea was that the 2 bowmen from the brilliant command can either operate with that command or they can detach and go and join the I like to add bowmen to a cavalry charging unit to drop one at least on the end, so I've got a slightly bigger chance of going through, which did work in one game.
Yeah. Richard, did you consider the Rajputs at all in your list composition? Was that one of the things you looked at? Because it does give them a very different cutting edge.
I thought about it, but I had decided that, to my earlier comment, given I was going to be facing mainly spear and cavalry, that I wanted to max out on elephants and impetuous medium swordsmen with enough bowmen to give them some support if that was appropriate. And so, and I wanted to keep it simple.
Yeah,
I'll explain that more when I go over my list.
Yeah. And Dave, the medium swordsmen in the first one, they're just medium swordsmen. They're not medium swordsmen impetuous.
No, they're not, because
they can't be because they're Rajputs.
Because it's a Rajput army. The way I read the list when I looked at it very quickly and briefly, it said you've got to have medium swordsmen rather than medium sword. You have to take them in that army, which does downpower it. I have to admit, and that was a bit of a failure.
Yeah. Anybody else got any thoughts on this? Because it does look a little undercooked.
The Spanish prefer medium swordsmen, so I was kind of thinking I'll experiment with that. It was more of an experimental value, but I think if they'd been impetuous, it would have been better.
Okay. Anybody else come up against one of these armies or have a thought on it? I'm still, very skeptical about how the heavy cavalry impetuous actually work with this thing.
There's always going to be some space in the table once it's laid out. I mean, and there was in both the first games that I lost, the first game and the second game, both of which I lost, the cavalry were able to operate and go down. The first game I just ended up with a gully next to them, which stopped my bowmen supporting them well enough. My bowman got one shot in, dropped a heavy cavalry bow down, and that gave me the chance to charge in, and he evaded back to his back edge and then stood and fought, and then beat the hell out of me, even though I hadn't taken any losses or hits on me.
So what did this struggle against then? What do you struggle against?
Enemy cavalry, the Tang armies.
Okay. So could they just ride up to the bowmen and the elephants and shoot them up, or?
No. I mean, they just, my two impetuous foot ran into three impetuous foot and got absolutely destroyed in one game. So in the first game, my opponent put down two plantations, one which ended up in the middle of the table, one on one wing. He ambushed three medium foot impetuous and two light foot in the plantation, and I went into that trying to bust around with my impetuous foot and lost completely in that, and that let him turn in on the elephant's command with the one elephant. My three elephants just stuck on his heavy foot, which were mixed bow shooters. I didn't take any hits or anything, but I just didn't get through them. My cavalry charged in, pushed back his cavalry to the edge of the table where they stood, and then they just frankly beat me at levels down, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, it's kind of that big first command is the elite elephants want to attack, but then the medium swordsmen, the bowmen are sit and wait and let you attack me sort of troops, isn't it? If you drive forward with a block of elephants, you've got no support for the other four, but if you stick the other four in between to make it wider, it's not really as aggressive.
In hindsight, it's better to have the elephant split into two.
Yeah.
So the ally has two, and then and that sits in the middle with its impetuous foot, and then the other one can come down and block more. And then you can also combine up to have four elephants if you get the opportunity, if there's a chart, something there.
Yeah, that might be the change.
Yeah. Okay. As I say, it was a much better army in version 3, where if you faced enemy elephants, you could dismount as the heavy cavalry impetuous became medium foot impetuous elite with armor that included general. And about as good as you can get to face other elephants.
Yeah, and that was always going to get stopped, wasn't it? And that's sadly we're not 5 years ago, and that's not been the case for quite some time. Yeah.
I think in hindsight, if you're going to go elephants, you need to go fully elephants.
Okay, that's a nod from Gordon. Is that you're all over that one?
No, I didn't face a Hindu, unfortunately, at the weekend.
Yeah.
I think it would have been fun. But I have taken a similar army in the past, and I did struggle with it because there weren't enough elephants in the right places. But then that's always the problem with elephants. Your opponent will do their best to avoid them unless they've got an army full of javelin men or something like that.
Yeah. So having a block of 3 and a single one and then this cavalry command is the challenge. It's not elephanty enough. Okay, then. Well, let's have a look at next. And Gordon, this is your multicolored Sui and Tang list, which, as someone who does checklists, I'm for competitions, I'm grateful that it's the proper spreadsheet and not some old bloody nonsense someone else has cooked up themselves, because it's always much harder to check a list if it's not the right thing. But it's colourful. Is this a Chinese sort of theme that
it's dead easy to do? You just unprotect the sheet and you can make changes, but as long as you don't change anything about the order of the columns, because that really fucks up the mathematics.
Really fucks it up. Yeah. Okay, so this is Tang then, which was one of the most popular lists that people chose, and it's got it's got a lot of different troop types, but not hundreds of different ones of each command.
Well, it's got quite a lot of bits.
It's got a lot of bits.
I chose it because I didn't fancy taking a purely Sogdian army, and I didn't fancy taking a purely steppe bow cavalry army, because I thought they're just too easy to fall prey to steady infantry. So I took the minimum, or close to the minimum of infantry. I took the 2 Fubing, the mixed heavy spear and bow, and 2 heavy halberdiers to protect them. And that was perfectly adequate in terms of the job. They could brigade separately, so you could have 2 heavy foot with 1 shooter, which would certainly stand against medium cavalry and light cavalry. They will die slowly against other opponents, and in some games I'm not sure any of them survived. That was the important part of the battle plan application, is they soak up attacks whilst my cavalry go on the flanks. But the second reason for choosing the Tang was I could get quite cheaply the 4 elite impetuous heavy cavalry as a Sogdian ally. And when you said earlier, you should probably have at least a competent general to command a loose cannon like that. I treated them as fairly expendable, because in this competition, there's no real danger of them charging against stuff that they can't handle, because they don't have to charge unwounded heavy foot. And there was plenty of heavy foot around in the competition, heavy spearmen. And if they're facing elephants, well, they've already dismounted. And then they're well-behaved heavy spearmen.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of elites. So 4, 5, 11.
There's 14 elites in the army.
14 elite mounted troops in that army. So your first command is a block of 4 foot and then a kind of mini impact cavalry command, and then you've got a bow cavalry command that's all elite, and then so it's actually quite impacty, isn't it, with cavalry? You've got 6.
The heavy foot are prepared to go with the 2 heavy cavalry impact and stand just on the other side of the impetuous heavy cavalry, because they can all stand against impact type cavalry. So that's quite a long line of people who can fight if someone has chosen an impact cavalry army. Probably
you're actually almost committed to fighting, because there's only 1 command with heavy cavalry bow.
Yes, one command does most of the shooting, but even the fighty bit has still got 2 mixed units, and they can shoot at long range.
True. So how did this work in practice? Because one of the things I'm looking is command 3 charges in, command 2 shoots as heavy cavalry, command 1 is sort of impact plus the anvil of the heavy foot. So they're all doing one job, which I would imagine means they've kind of got to be in the right place to do that one job?
Yes, I mean, the first point where things can go wrong is guessing where your opponent is going to put their squishy as opposed to their hard stuff. In practice, I got that right in 3 games, but then that's not the same as a 5 or 6 game competition. So I'm sure I've got plenty of opportunity to get it wrong. I didn't meet any opponent that outclassed the troops in it. I mean, I misdeployed in my first game against Harrison. And there was a space way over on one side of the table where he could put a mounted command to come round my flank, which he did. So I had to split my big command to deal with both that and the cataphracts coming from closer to them. In practice, they saw off those attacks, but not very many of them lived to tell the tale about it. It was a very, very close game. It was very good fun. I died when Harrison had 1 point left. So I didn't feel that it was
pretty close. Yeah.
And we did an awful lot of fighting and not that much shooting. Yeah. So I don't think the army failed on that ground, that it didn't have enough shooting.
What about medium foot? Did you feel the need for medium foot? Because it's, playing Forest Mountain, you're in a world in which you are going to see terrain. You don't have like the step only option.
Oh, that's true. But I thought that there will only be a couple of armies that want to have that. And I'm quite small. I mean, I can deploy the whole army in a half of the board.
Yeah.
And if I faced an elephant army that succeeded in getting lots of terrain down, then I just don't go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just or possibly.
And I've got enough shooters that I can have a shooting duel with an Indian army, and they've got to come out of the terrain to fight me.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Andy, you used a Tang, didn't you? I don't know anybody else fought one. Anybody got any views on this?
The list I took was based on a practice game I had with Gordon, where he beat me with it's probably the identical army to the list you're just looking at. After which I changed my list a bit to include a identical Sojian ally corps, but I prefer to have some medium troops.
Yeah.
And therefore my army was put together somewhat differently.
Actually, where is it? No, is this the one? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the one.
So
yeah.
The third corps is the Sojian ally, and that's the same as Gordon's 4 elite impetuous guys. And I had an ordinary included general. They've got one job. You hold them back, and once they get near, well, there's things you don't have to charge, but otherwise you just get stuck in.
The second corps is pretty similar as well, isn't it?
It's just a fairly standard mounted cavalry shooting thing. Instinctively, if they're going to be shooting rather than fighting in melee, I don't really see I'm not really convinced as to the merits of making them elite as opposed to armored. Given a choice between ordinary heavy cavalry or elite medium, I'd take ordinary heavy every time.
Yeah, but yours were elite heavy actually, weren't they, Gordon? So you've gone full fat on that one. 66 points versus 57.
And then the infantry corps, I've got a strategist in command of all the infantry, and they've got 3 Fubing and a light artillery, which is my sort of fire base for shooting, and a heavy halberdier and a medium halberdier.
Yeah.
3 tribal auxiliaries who are impetuous medium swordsmen and a medium halberdier. So that's my medium command wing, and 3 light foot crossbow to keep the tribal auxiliaries hopefully in good behavior until they need to jump in.
It looks like something that where you've got more stuff you can do things with against. If you come up against spear, you can have a run at them with the medium sword, or the Fubing are a bit bigger. There's a medium swordsman to go into terrain. I don't know. I guess this is a Gordon and Andy debate about what's better. Gordon, you went for like quality and maneuverability and avoid terrain, whereas Andy went for just a bit bigger and be able to extend that line into terrain to create a sort of fire base.
Yeah, well,
I think it comes down to a preference, but I want to be aggressive, and therefore I'm going to have to fight whatever I'm going towards. I may get a chance to do some shooting damage first, but the plan is almost always to charge them as soon as possible.
With 6 impact cavalry or impetuous and impact cavalry.
Or even the heavy cavalry bow.
Yeah, and the heavy cavalry bow.
If I've wounded somebody, they're definitely going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got three impetuous infantry and four impetuous cavalry. So, I'm expecting at some stage they're going to get stuck in and attack people. It's just ideally if they want to come towards me and get shot up first, that works in my favor. And one reason I wanted a medium command was because I thought that, and it didn't work against Richard for various reasons, but I took the view that if I'm fighting an elephant army, I'd like to defend in the plains and throw down as much plantations as I could to sort of discombobulate the elephants and limit where they can go. As Richard will probably tell you, when we played our game, it also had the effect that there wasn't enough table space for me to be able to use my cavalry corps effectively on one wing. So my only way to be able to use them as proper cavalry, either the Tang or the Sogdians, would be as a flank march, and that's always a bit hazardous as to whether they even turn up.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sending an ally on a flank march. That's just mad.
Yeah, Richard, which of these two, you've given me fought at least one Tang, this one, which of the two would you be, with your elephant army, thinking is either this one or t'other one, which can, I guess, get out the way a bit more or concentrate a bit more and is a bit more gritty, but doesn't have that potential, light infantry screen, impetuous foot, all this other extra bits of shooting and polearm guys here?
I mean, Andy's was a very tough army for me to face. I mean, in all of my games, what helped was I got the waterway down and my opponents put down a reasonable amount of terrain. I mean, Andy's right that my elephants don't like plantations, but what they do is limit the ability of his cavalry to operate.
Yeah.
I think the best, if Gordon had put down the minimum terrain and it had been a big open battlefield, I would have found it very hard to respond to his highly mobile army, because the Indians, I think, are almost unstoppable frontally on a defined frontage, but they are very vulnerable if you can get onto their flanks or behind them.
Yeah, because I always think that, the practice game we played, it reminded me the way to beat Indians is to concentrate on a quarter of the army with everything you've got, because they can't wheel around and deal with the rest. And it almost doesn't matter what you've got, as long as you can throw all of your army at a third to a quarter of them, it should just about knock holes through the elephants. Then you roll them up, and that's it. And that's the downside of using an Indian army. There's not really a plan against that.
Yeah, I would agree. In hindsight, I think I overcooked it with the terrain, particularly moving the plantation-y hill when I did. If I hadn't done that, there would have been a bit more space. But I was also minded of the fact that plantations enable me to move my medium troops in relative safety to a position where they can then do something useful.
And that was a big threat.
Yeah.
But the Tang can have impetuous medium foot.
They do.
But this one does, yeah.
Okay. So that's what screwed me up. My opponent attacked me in the plains. I took the gentle hill and the two fields, and then he took the two plantations and then ambushed 3 medium foot impetuous in one of those woods, and the other wood was in the middle of the table. So that gave him, that Tang army beat me because of that, because he was able to concentrate the impetuous foot against mine too.
Yeah. So I think of these two, it's a difficult call. So I guess this one, as you'll see, is much closer to my army, whereas Andy's one, I think I'd feel there's more I can do with it. It just feels like it's got more options. But it's a difficult one with a 3-game, 1-day competition. I think in some ways I would probably take Andy's list to a 5-game competition, and maybe Gordon's list to a 1-dayer, because if you're only playing 3 games, saying I'm going to do something that's very almost one-dimensional and has got a plan, I'll do that 3 times. but I don't want to do it 5 because if it doesn't work, it could be horrible, and if it does work, it could be boring. To do
Well,
to
I think it
execute.
also depends on what the theme is, and
Yeah.
what are you how certain are you what type of armies you're going to be facing in the competition. But one thing I like about my army, and having played 3 games with it for the first time in a competition, I came away thinking, oh, I quite like this army, and I'd be inclined to use it again. And I think 2 of the plus points are it's got 24 units, which means it's got fairly solid, robust. And secondly, it's got a strategist, so it's got an initiative of 3, and I can, more easy to play around with terrain. So I think for those reasons, if you said to me, choose Gordon's army or mine, instinctively I'd choose mine.
Would you take the Sogdians every time, or would you consider doing that with impact cavalry and some more Tang stuff?
No, I think I would do, simply because the cavalry you have to take with the Tang you've got to take at least 4 shooty bow people.
Yeah.
And I think you've got relatively few impact cavalry you can take in that time frame, until it becomes the later version of the army. And the Sogdians are a sort of cost-effective hitty force. I mean, if it was completely open competition like Lisbon or something there, where you could be facing knights or pikemen or something like that, then it's probably not an army I would choose. But given the limitations of the dates in the competition in Oxford, I thought it was worth doing.
Okay. Intriguing. Well, that's your list, Andy. And given that you're holding the screen, maybe this is time to implement Andy's quiz as well, which we, in a break from tradition or possibly recognition that we're not necessarily going to get around to doing another one of these for ages, we may well even squeeze in the answers at the end of this podcast for you. So let's.
Question. Comment les voir? Question. Le trou est sans fond. Question. La légende le dit. Question.
The music for Andy's quiz. So Andy, hit us with your questions, your military themed quiz questions.
Right. The answer to all these, right. The theme of this quiz is White House warriors. And the answer to all of these 3 questions is the name of a serving officer in the US military who later became president. So the first question is a bit involved to ask it, but when this officer...
No, go on, you surprised me.
Yeah, the other 2 are fairly short. Question 1, when this officer was being considered for promotion, the chief of staff told the president that this officer was an alcoholic and drank a bottle of whiskey every day, to which the president replied, find out what whiskey he drinks and send some to all my generals. So who was that?
Richard thinks he's got it. Dave thinks he's got it. Gordon.
Yeah, you got a chance to answer later on. Okay.
Okay. Everybody thinks they got it apart from me.
Okay.
Right, okay. Fine.
Question 2: which officer had to wait a full week before being rescued by the U.S. Navy after his warship sank? Richard thinks he knows that one. Okay.
Okay.
And number 3: which officer led his troops to victory in a battle which occurred after the war had finished?
Wow, that's niche as well. Good. Well, that's the return of Andy's quiz. So
Question. Comment les voir? Question. Le trou est sans fond. Question. La légende le dit. Question.
Andy's quiz, that's done. We'll come back with the answers later on. So let's have a look. Let's move on to this one. So this one was mine. Yeah, this is actually the key thing, isn't it? This is the number of different games that have been played in descending order. So Toltec and Chanka have never been played at all, neither have Pueblos. The Phrygians have been played 3 times with a 33% success rate. Olmec 3 times, lost 3. Not great. The Chateau Turks, which I definitely would have taken the Chateau Turks if that had been possible. And then coming in here at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, actually, that's joint first, isn't it? So second, third, fourth. The 5th least popular army in all the books is the super generic Central Asian Turkish, which there's loads of other armies which are exactly the same almost. But this is my kind of Gordon army, I guess is the answer here, in that you've got 2 pretty much literally identical commands. This is the magic thing about it. The region is step, 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 or step, and I managed to end up as defender in all of my 3 battles, and gave my opponent the choice of no terrain, and I deployed the same 3 pieces of teeny tiny brushy terrain. Sometimes they ended up in the middle, which was a pain in the ass, and sometimes they didn't. But 2 big shooting cavalry commands with 4 elite shooters there, and some horse archers, and then the Saltian ally, partly because I've got some quite cool cavalry to work as Saltians. And I think the bit I'd done with the Saltians that the previous 2 hadn't, I'd stuck in this extra heavy cavalry bow, the ex-Sassanid, which I just thought that was a must take, really. And also I'd made him competent and not included. I'd just given all 3 of them a competent general, because I was thinking, okay, the Saltians are going to go in, but they are going to need to maneuver into position. They're all elite, they're going to fight. But if he's not included, they can go in and fight. And then I've still got this kind of tiny little thing of a heavy cavalry and a light cavalry left behind that can go off on their own, or it can support the other ones, or it just means that once this thing's committed, I've still got some agency with that command, and I can still sort of push this past somebody, or try and do it. In my final game, this nearly managed to get to the baggage in time and win the game for me before I lost it, because it failed to shoot up a light horse in about 4 turns of shooting. And the rest of it is just as simple as it gets. But I've always struggled with using these sort of I don't know, Mongol type, heavy Hunnic type armies, and I really want to just give it another go. And I felt that having all of these elite meant that I was actually starting to learn the discipline with this mobile sort of army, just to go, right, it's the start of every turn, blank table, and I'm going to move the whole army to one flank immediately, and then drive forwards, shoot, and then be quite happy to stand against impact cavalry if I've got a shot or 2 in them, and shove these in here as the the bit that sort of forces people back. But clearly there's no way of dealing with terrain in this one at all. I fought a couple of armies with a single elephant. I didn't bother getting anybody off, because it was just no point just moving it around. And 4 8 elite cavalry shooters plus that light horse was just quite a lot. But I don't know who. It's almost so straightforward. I'm struggling to come up with comments, but I don't know if anybody's got any other thoughts about it on how that one works.
Isn't your one the one that has the elephant?
No, I didn't choose the elephant.
From the Arab lot.
You can take it if you go for the Cotonese rather than the generic.
Steve Royal used it at roll call, didn't he?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
The problem is
really well
Andy and I couldn't take.
Yeah,
Andy and I couldn't take the Sogdians because we could only have them near 633, in which case those ex-Sassanids are not available.
They're not available to the Tang, right? Okay, it's in a different place. So, is it? I'm not sure the Central Asian Turkish can have the elephant. That might be the one that's
one version of it. Yeah,
the one before it. But
yes, it is. So 139. It's the city-states.
City-states, which is almost the same army, can have the elephant. But I just didn't. I think you can have some heavy foot with it. But I thought, let's just make this an all Mongol army, Mongol type cavalry army to see if I can do what that does, because I'd always struggled with trying to do it. And being in a one-day competition, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You're not tied to it for 2 days and 5 games. But definitely having competent and then something else to do once the noble cavalry committed, I thought was just a bit of a no-brainer. Even though it was tiny, it ended up as 20. But the only game I lost, I was within 1 point of actually winning, or 1 attack on the camp in terms of winning. Did struggle to deal with terrain. Really struggled to deal with 4 Fu being heavy infantry mixed bows on a piece of terrain. I just couldn't really do a lot about those. But other than that, straightforward Mongol type army.
Yeah, I mean, it was this kind of army that was terrifying to face at Alicante.
You beat the
in
territory.
January.
I'm going to say
Just
that.
horrendous. They come forward, they shoot you, they run away, and before you know where you are, you've lost your flanks and everything.
In a competition without many, I mean, I noticed this, that people worked out the meta for Alicante because there weren't many bowmen. Although in this competition we've just had, I mean, it doesn't sound like you faced a lot of bowmen, Tim.
Not a great deal. No. I had a
You've been facing the Tang with the mixed spear bowmen.
that's where I came unstuck completely.
They are the solution. They're the biggest threat.
They were. Yeah.
And in fact, I would say that they will always knock down an entire cavalry army. I mean, if you can get an entire cavalry bow shooting army with, where there aren't many mixed shooters or knights or things like that, then I think it can beat elephants as well.
Well, you as always, you just go back to history and you go, okay, which armies stand up to steppe type armies? And the Tang army is developed expressly to actually go out into the steppes and fight this kind of army.
Yeah.
That's why the Fu Bing exists, really.
Yeah. And they did do very, very successfully in the historical recreation that we did on game 3 against Al. Because there were 4 of the Fu Bing. He had an ally to the Tang, which was the Koreans, which allowed him to get up to 4 cataphracts in the army. So 4 Fu Bing, 4 cataphracts. That's pretty bulletproof and pretty dangerous. And then a command of, I think, 4 or 5 heavy cavalry bow as well, that were as kind of good as me, and difficult for me to do a lot. And then this huge number of medium foot who came round and that jumped out of terrain after I'd kind of run away from it. So, but I really enjoyed using it, and I think I'd be, I learned more about using these sorts of armies. But you need so much discipline to do it, to just go, I am moving from here to there, and this is where I'm attacking. And I suspect I probably stood around to fight a bit too much, but I just wanted to get stuck in because there's so many elites here. I thought against other cavalry I can actually probably tough it out, and those heavy cavalry impetuous kind of worked for that. They allowed the other heavies to choose to stand. It wasn't a pure play fall back, come in, and I don't know whether it would be that made it more fun to use, because you always thought you had something that could skittle people over. But against elephants, I think it just would be concentrate on one side and then sit and wait for them to charge and try and outshoot them with that many heavy cavalry, and try and avoid at least 1/3 of the commands, which again, in the game we played as a practice, Richard, your terrain just completely kiboshed my ability to do that, which was a bit of the risk. But certainly, so with two wins and a defeat, I've kind of pushed. I've flattened the win percentage for it slightly, unfortunately, but it's still not bad. It will be 6 wins and 2 defeats, so it's 75%, which is still pretty good in terms of efficiency. So we'll keep it up there as one of the most effective armies now, with a whole 7 different bits and pieces. So let's have a look. Arab Conquest, Mr. Allen. I think there were 2 people who picked this. And you say this is just because one that you'd used before. But medium swordsman, heavy swordsman, of course I was going to say, of course, the Omani, but there's no camels there. So what was the theory with this, and why didn't it work?
Well, I'd used it previously at the 2021 Club One Dayer. And
wow, well done for remembering that existed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I did actually check the record before before I spoke. But where I ran away from Peter's Arab Conquest army to get a draw, and then promptly got destroyed by 2 other players.
So you used it at a competition where you only got 1 draw out of 3.
Yeah,
that's a good way to pick a good
I thought,
one.
I could do better than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got some nice toys. It's got the nice light horse impact. It's got a an early Arab ally, which gives
Yeah.
you supported medium spear.
Okay, so looking at this one, so your first command is 13. You've got 4 elite medium swordsman impetuous. Elite, sorry, I've missed that. With the strategist, a bowman to ping around, couple of lumpy bow, then 2 elite medium cavalry impetuous and 4 light cavalry impact. So that is 2 commands, isn't it? It's 4 elite impetuous foot, and it's 2 elite impetuous medium cavalry and 4 light cavalry impact with a strategist. Then you've got 4 heavy swordsman impetuous elite, which is tough as old boots in theory, elephant slayer for fun, and a light cavalry bow just to screen that. And then your Amani's heavy swordsman missile support, 3 of those, 1 light cavalry javelin, 2 light bow, 1 bowman. So do you find you have to sort of had something to anchor it on?
Yeah, well, the idea was that it would fight in desert because it's only got the one terrain.
Yeah.
And hopefully, the one thing I was worried about was cataphracts.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, I'd be able to discomfort the cataphracts with the terrain.
Yeah.
I figured because there were so many other Arabs and things like the Tang and so forth, that there'd be a lot of spearmen about.
Yeah.
And that was the target.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, it's an anti-spearman army, isn't it?
Yeah. As luck would have it, I drew lance flints, Tibetans in the first game.
Oh.
So I thought, well, this is not going to end well.
No, not against cataphracts.
And Lance had his usual luck at the start of the game. He rolled 3 ones, and he did a Peter Case thing of having 2 unreliable generals.
Oh, right.
But I could have dicked around for 3 hours and not really played and made his life miserable. But I thought, no, I'll give it a shot. And they went down badly. 7 or 8 cataphracts. Just impossible.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, you can't do anything about that with this army.
I can charge the medium cavalry in. They might do a bit of damage. They're always at a disadvantage, but it's only minor, and they might slow them up, and they didn't slow them up much.
No.
So the idea was to have 1 terrain command, 1 and 2 a 7 wide solid line with support. I always take this this light camel mediocre. I never get to use it. The idea is great. You go in on the end of a line and you support your foot and really upset the cavalry who are attacking your line, and it's always somewhere else.
Yeah. One thing looking at this though, a question. I don't know if this happened. So you've got your medium swordsman in the command with your cavalry and light horse, whereas
the other way around, isn't it?
The medium swordsmen are with the medium cavalry impetuous and light horse with the strategist. Is this not your actual list?
No, it's a heavy. Hang on a second. Just a minute.
You've said, because I was going to say, surely your medium swordsmen should be in a command on their own because you're unlikely to have room for the cavalry next to your terrain anchor where the medium swordsman will live.
Yes, I think
it would make...
I might have got that wrong. That might be in the previous list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing I was just going, that doesn't work. You'd already corrected, and you've done that by sending me the wrong list, because it would seem to make more sense to have the 2 cavalry and the 4 light cavalry with the 4 fanatic warriors.
Yeah, perhaps. The heavies. And with the heavies. That was the way I deployed it. I might have sent the wrong list to.
Oh right, okay.
Let's not talk about that.
Okay, minor detail then. So you probably had a 14 and a 7 then, or something like that instead.
Yeah.
That does make a lot more sense. Okay, and but it's just a chunky fighty army. And then what went wrong in your other 2 games?
Oh no, it didn't go wrong at all.
It went wrong at all. Oh, brilliant.
No, it came up against an Umayyad, which was lots of spearmen, and
perfect.
It's just what I wanted to face.
Yeah.
And I think that was Phil Powell.
Yep.
And the last game was Pete Sanger's Arab Indian. And I got the terrain and 2 big dunes, and was able to focus on his heavy spear.
And then they go down.
And keep out of the way of his stupid elephants.
Okay. Okay. All right. So it worked when you got the right opponent, and it didn't work when you didn't. That's the challenge. Okay. All right. So I think that's run through. Anybody else got any comments on this one other than it would be much better if you changed it in the way that you actually did?
Yes, I did.
I'd just like to point out that Mr. Madigan played extremely well to me in the very first game, but he was using one of Clive's armies, and I completely rolled one after one after one after one.
Oh, that was that Tang army that Clive had. Yeah, that was beautiful, wasn't it? That was one of the nicest painted armies he had.
And it's figures which are definitely not made anymore. I mean, even Mr. Madigan's been playing longer than I have. He didn't know where we both decided they must be pre-Essex. There must be Essex figures from a long time ago of Chinese, but they were great figures, really good.
Good. Okay. All right, that's good.
So festival.
Fantastic. Let's just have a quick look at this. So
I played Dave Madigan in the second game, and he was moaning about his luck. So if he'd had his luck in the second game, in his first game against you, it might have worked better for you.
No, he played really well. He played me off the table.
Okay. Well, let's have a quick look at how the final results washed out in this one. This is the final scores, adding in all the correct players. So we end up with Mr. Case on top, with your Indian with a chunky 274 points, 3 victories, and 15-14. That's quite. How big was your army again, Richard?
Well, do you want to show it? We haven't actually really talked about it.
Oh God, we haven't got to it. Oh my God, sorry. I thought we talked about it before. I will change my screen share to that one. We've where's the screen share gone? Dave Anna's legacy one. Let's do that one instead. Let's look at the winning army now. We've spoiled the trick. So, but you've already tempted us by saying it was this is. I'm going to do elephants, so let's do elephants.
Yeah. So I looked at the list and saw that if you take the King Harsha option, you can have a Tamil ally. That then gave me 6 elite elephants. So the army.
And that concludes today's Ed lecture.
Yeah, that was the basis of the army. And then I figured rather than I had to take 4 bowmen, so I concentrated those in one command, which I thought, well, I'll generally have that on one wing, and then I'll have 2 other commands, which in the main, I would put the 2 elephants together with an impetuous medium swordsman on either side, the light infantry screen in the front, use the medium cavalry as sweepers behind the line, basically put the 3 commands shoulder to shoulder and advance. It was as simple as that. Yeah. I was lucky every game I got the waterway.
I think the term is trunk to trunk.
Yeah. I had a reasonable amount of terrain. It was sometimes less than I would like. And the other advantage, being 27, you could afford to take some losses. So I was charging swordsmen with the bowmen in some situations, just because it was better to have a continuous line in combat and not give the enemy overlaps. You're 1 down. It's only 1 down. In others, you're 1 up with furious charge. And so I was gambling that if I was doing enough combats, the factors were in my favor. And that's basically what worked. Took a medium amount of damage in pretty much every game, but it was surprisingly resilient while it was faced frontally. And again, partly knowing I would have to do that, this is the only time I've ever done it. I included all 3 generals, and they were all ordinary, but that helped the size. But it was almost to force me to commit to not maneuvering. The only way I figured the army
your own hands
would
to
work
the table
was to have a single line and go forward. If I tried to turn them around, if I tried to do anything, I was probably going to cropper. So it was it was a bit like sort of Romans at Cannae. You have to try and burst through the enemy line before he overwhelms your flanks.
So it's mandatory idiocy. Mandatory idiocy.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Good. Yeah, because it's 16 wide, isn't it, in terms of proper troops, and but then there's 2, 4, 6. There's actually 8 light infantry, and then your medium cavalry are backstops as well. So in some ways, you've got 10 units that are not really going to get in danger,
Exactly.
or shouldn't do. So your 27 breakpoint, and they've only got 17 to go at. They've got to kill almost everything that's going to be fighting.
Exactly, of which 6 are elite elephants.
Yeah, which 6 are elite elephants, which is a challenge as well. So that is going to be hard to lose, isn't it? It's definitely, yeah. So Dave, is this the list you wish you'd taken?
It's very close. Sean Drummond used it in BritCon a few years ago, and you can do similar. You don't have to have the Tamil. You can do another Hindu in, an integral ally to the Hindu. So you can have Hindu army with a Hindu Indian, and that gives you 6 elephants as well. I think the danger is losing the light foot.
Yeah.
I think there's a way you can do it, which has got impact foot into it, isn't it?
Yes, taking a Chola dynasty version of the Tangs.
Yeah,
but it's much later.
Yeah, it's a different list, but that's
not in this period.
That's a funky version.
Yeah, it has its limitations. Dave and I took a hugely expanded version of that to Burton for doubles on the grounds that in a doubles competition, I quote somebody here, elephants are unbeatable. So take elephants. I think we came 2nd or 3rd to bottom.
Right. Well, again, Richard, you said you got the waterway down and decent terrain. If you'd not got the waterway, because you got the waterway in the one practice game I gave you as well. So clearly that was if you'd not got the waterway, would that have really just put you all at sea potentially, or was there enough terrain anyway?
If I didn't get the waterway, my game plan was, and again, I was fortunate that my ally was reliable, I think. And he may have been unreliable in one game, but it didn't, I think the enemy ran up and activated him quite quickly. But my game plan would be to risk the enemy flank marching and to go up a table edge and basically use a table edge instead of a waterway. And in command 1, the medium horsemen and 1 or 2 archers and maybe the impetuous medium swordsman would then be used as ablative armor. You just throw those out to slow the enemy down, expect to lose them. But because everything's moving at 3 all the time, you're going to get in, and you're wide enough. The enemy, it's very hard for the enemy to completely escape you. So Phil tried it. He got his cavalry out of the way, but that meant he left 6 heavy spearmen to face 4 elephants and 4 impetuous medium swordsmen. So that didn't take long.
No, that's not going to end well, is it? No. Okay. Is this something that you'd take again, or because it's effective, but you're almost
certainly not.
No.
It was fun to use. I would only take it in a 1-dayer.
Yeah.
It was fun to use because I hadn't used it, and it's a bit like you were saying with your Turks. It's interesting to play with armies you've faced similar kind of things and understand what their weaknesses are, so that when you play them again, you know how to put the other guy on the back foot.
Yeah. No, I must admit, I think we've been having a discussion about buying some stuff in the museum sale, and if I get 2 or 3 more Indian elephants, I could put an Indian army on table. But there's part of me, every time I face one, I know exactly what to do, and it's quite straightforward to beat it. So I'm sort of like, is that worth doing? Unless there's one that's built completely weirdly. I think I have come very unstuck against one in Bournemouth a few years ago that didn't have any elephants and was kind of very strange. But it completely
war wagons instead.
With war wagons and loads of mixed shooters on a rough hill in the middle of the table, and I didn't really know what to do about it. It really struggled against it. So yeah, it was kind of a weird version, but but maybe I should still buy the extra couple of elephants because the tin soldier ones are really nice, and that's what I've got. But yeah, I know that feeling. I think that's what the one-day competitions are so good for. You know, you can get 3 games, which is enough to be meaty, but not enough to get bored or find that you've taken a terrible list composition. It allows you to be a bit more experimental and try some of this stuff. But no, you know, I think this absolutely does what it says on the tin. It's 14 wide of elite elephants and medium swordsman impetuous and bowmen, and you go away and deal with it. It's just kind of
and in a theme where there's no pikeman, an elite elephant with a commander on board is pretty well unstoppable.
Yeah, difficult. Well, the only way you stop it is to get out of the way and try and attack somebody else. So, indeed, okay.
Well, I wasn't given that option.
No, no, sadly not. So let's have a quick look again at the final results where we are. So, Richard, you with your 3 wins there, losing 15, 14, and 8. Oh, there's me with a couple of victories. That was taking down Jesse. With his Arab Indian, I got into the medium foot. That one, 874. Where's that one gone? Simon Ellis with Sassanids. I outmatched his cavalry. Really, that was the main part of that. And then losing to Al, who came projecting him up to second, nearly getting there, but I just couldn't deal with the Fu Bing. Mr. Finkel, you snuck in there one. We were Sui and Tang. So what were those 3 results? We know that one.
Then... two wins against Tang armies, and lucky to finish second against the deserved overall winner.
Okay. And Mr. Allen, you're in there with your defeat, which you've talked about, and then your 2 victories where you managed to find the right opponent for the elite impact foot, sneaking not just miles ahead of Gordon, nearly 30 points ahead of Gordon there with a full set of everything, Gordon. It's the perfect hat trick, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, each of them were goodish results in their category, but a goodish draw isn't really that much better than a goodish defeat. So
yeah,
not a lot to be gained from that.
Yeah.
Gordon, is it right that you took no losses in your last game and you got 100 points for a...
Yes.
Oh yes.
My opponent had
Didn't do that very often.
No, it's the first time I've managed it in a competition.
Don't think I ever have.
My opponent had not an allied, but just an unreliable part of his army, sensibly parked in the middle, just saving the money. There were 6 supported heavy spears and some other stuff, a few lights. So I decided, once my Sogdians had proved they were on my side, I just charged the flanks and chewed my way through them. Eventually had to activate the unreliable command in the middle. But by the time they clashed with something, they were clashing with my dismounted heavy spearmen who'd been Sogdians, because the army had 1 elephant, right, which gave me latitude to have far more reliable, maneuverable troops. And he didn't retreat fast enough around his center command. So all the casualties were from the 2 corps that weren't unreliable at the beginning.
Brutal. And then Dave, you ended up somewhat below mid-table with 2 defeats and then victory in the end against the Tang. And that was
Mr. Madigan did very well again. He played really well and didn't make any mistakes. My dice are terrible. He got the 2 plantations exactly at the right place, and his ambush outnumbered my impetuous foot, which was my mistake. I didn't think there would be any of those there. Completely didn't realise that. Then the second game, Pete Sanger's Arab Indians were 28 to my 24, and I put my cavalry in the middle of the table, and that's the wrong place for me.
Yeah. And actually, it was quite...
I did wrong was having the 3... It's an experiment to have 3 elephants together to see how much of a battering ram that is, and it's not.
No, okay. And actually, given there were a lot of Tang in this choice, they came all the way through the pool, didn't they? They're not clustered at the top or the bottom. Same with all the other ones, actually. There's a real mix. There's nothing jumped out there other than, I guess Hindu Indian at the top, but then Hindu Indian slightly below halfway. All sorts of different bits and pieces there. So a good old mix. So I think that potentially concludes the day, and that allows us to move on to the answers to.
Comment les entendre? Question. Comment les voir? Question. Le trou est sans fond? Question. La légende le dit.
So, Mr. Finkel, tell us the answers to your quiz in this lightning fast turnaround of results.
Right. Well, do we want anyone to try and see if they've worked out the answer yet, or?
I know the answer to the first one.
Which is
Ulysses S. Grant.
correct.
Yes.
What was that? What was that question again? That was someone.
It was the one who was
About the whiskey.
accused to be alcoholic, and Lincoln said, "Find out what whiskey he drinks and send some to all my generals."
Well, I think that's very good that Dave got that, given that everybody else on this Zoom call is attempting to grow an American Civil War beard, and Dave's the only one who isn't. So that's now the secret. Right, okay. So whiskey-based
You
questions.
could always go for the Burnside whiskers.
Yeah, we'll lend him somewhere like that. Get some shavings.
Right. And the second one was, which officer had to wait for a full week before being rescued by the US Navy after his warship sank? Any ideas?
That's got to
John
be
F.
second.
Kennedy.
Correct.
And what's that, Second World War?
Yeah.
Yes. He was commanding a motor
PT boat.
PT boat, this torpedo boat jobbies.
PT-109, I believe.
Yes, that's right. It was the American version of like the MTBs in the Royal Navy.
Yes.
And at night, it was actually its Japanese destroyer sailed right through it, broke it in two, and sank it. And they got the crew off to a nearby island, and they eventually managed to get rescued, but it took a week.
That's amazing, because
It's a
I
pretty
always
good
assume
film.
think of JFK as being super young and in the 60s, but I guess if he was commanding a boat in the war,
He was like 22 because it was
22.
the PT
Okay.
boat. He was
Right.
just one officer, and
It's also how he screwed up his back, which was a major problem for all his life.
Well, apparently he was a champion swimmer and managed to swim from where this thing sank to the nearest island, and was instrumental in rescuing his crew and dragging one or two guys around who were injured. So maybe that did his back in as well.
PT
So
109 in the movie.
Yeah.
He was young. Okay, then. And number 3, the one that people were looking puzzled about.
Yeah. Which officer led his troops to victory in a battle which occurred after the war ended?
That's Andrew Jackson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Battle of New Orleans,
Yeah.
as in Lonnie Donegan's song.
Do you want to give us a quick burst of it, Andy? Or possibly
No,
not?
Mike, you don't want to hear me sing.
Don't want to hear you do your Lonnie Donegan impression.
Definitely
there's a good movie version of that battle where the various pirates that are recruited into the American forces are sharpshooting down the British officers, and the pipes are gallantly wailing as they stagger through the morass that surrounds New Orleans.
Yeah, basically it was the War of 1812, and there'd been a peace treaty signed a couple of weeks before, but the news hadn't reached New Orleans, and the British were commanded by, I think it's Pakenham, who was Wellington's brother-in-law, and I think he actually died in the battle.
How careless. And I guess on that incompetent note, we can now wrap this up. And as we lurch back in slowly into podcasting, and perhaps now we've done this once, we may well do this again with other events coming up, and us all daylight starting to come through the windows, and bits of painting starting to happen as well, with Dave there in his mega magnifying glass leading the charge. So thank you, everybody. And hopefully our poor set of listeners have enjoyed or been entertained by this, or seen something on screen, and we may well return in the foreseeable future. Goodbye, everybody.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.